All right, well, we might get started. My name is Rod Matthews, and welcome to Impact Human Performance Technology screencast on Leadership Review. Have you ever been to a training program, and during the training program you've been thinking to yourself, oh my goodness, there is so much to remember. You seem to leave feeling very overwhelmed. How am I going to remember all this stuff? And then you get back to work and you look at your desk and you see there's post-it notes all over your desk, messages everywhere, your inbox is full. And then 2 months later, someone could come up to you and ask you about the course, and your response could very easily be, what course? Very sad, because obviously on that course there was some excellent tips, tools and techniques that you wanted to implement. Some tips, tools and techniques that is going to help reduce the stress and frustration that can sometimes be associated with working with people who, at best, seem to have a different agenda to yours, at worst seem to be out and out trying to sabotage your day. Some tips, tools and techniques that is going to increase the likelihood that things get done right first time. And some tips, tools and techniques that is going to increase the likelihood that you are not just seen as an average leader, but you are seen as a great leader, an exceptional leader, head and shoulders above the rest. So, this screencast is designed to help deal with the overwhelm that can sometimes happen from a course where you get lots of ideas. This screencast is designed to help you be able to review the content and refresh the content for yourself. And you can do this two ways. Firstly, by looking at a review like this, what you can do is get access to all of the content at a fairly global level. But also what you can do is, let's say for the sake of argument that you want to set direction for your team, or you need to coach or counsel a team member, and you want to remind yourself as to the tips, tools and techniques that we covered that would help in those circumstances. What you can do is access a screencast about that particular issue, watch that screencast and design what it is that you would like to say, or design the process for the meeting as you watch the screencast. So welcome, enjoy, let's get started, and above all, have fun. Okay, so you might remember it all started way back when we identified some work that was done by Michael Gerber in the E-Myth. And we identified that there is a big difference between a technician, a manager, and an entrepreneur. And we identified that what a technician is the person who does the stuff of the business or the stuff of the department or the division. They are the person who sells. They are the person who keeps in contact with the clients. They are the person who manufactures, the person who delivers, the person who warehouses. They are the person who does the stuff of the business. Not enough, of course, to make an organisation function. We identified, or Gerber identified, that there is also the role of manager. And the role of manager has three key components. First of all, there is a budgetary component. So a manager's role is to be able to understand how much they cost, how much they contribute as a department. There is also a systems component. You might remember we talked about Gerber's, keeps quoting this phrase, that a manager's role is to proceduralise the routine so that we can personalise the exception. And also Gerber identified that a manager's role is also about the people component, the coaching, the counselling, the hiring, the firing, the development, the reassigning of the team. And we identified that one of the mistakes that people in small business, and indeed people in large business, often make is that we tend to promote the person who is technically most competent into the role of manager. And so what we do is, not only do we lose our best revenue producer, but we also put them into a role that requires a totally different set of skills and competencies. And we wonder why they struggle. And so what we often end up with is a poor person that's stuck in the middle here. They are at best a super technician, at worst a micromanager. And really the key out of that difficult spot, if you like, is to be able to hire, fire, coach, counsel, develop, reassign or assign tasks to your team members to a level where you are able to do the manager's role and you are not required to do the technician's role. And you might remember Gerber also talked about the role of entrepreneur. And an entrepreneur's role is to basically look into the marketplace first and ask themselves some questions. Where is the market headed? Where will the market be in 2 to 5 years' time? What pain is the market currently suffering? How might we alleviate that pain? Where do customers go to make their decisions? How much does it cost to acquire customers? All these sorts of questions, and armed with this information, their role is to come back to the organisation and say, this is where we need to head, this is where we need to head. And so therefore a manager's role is also to be able to translate that into a language that the technician understands. You might remember we also said that a technician's language is very much a past-based language. So a technician tends to say things like, in the past, in my experience, the way we have done this. A very past-based language. True entrepreneurs have a future-based language. So they tend to say things like, in the future, in 2 to 5 years, where the market is headed, the next 12 months, these sorts of things. So a manager's role is to be able to be a bit cross-eyed, is to be able to translate what it is the entrepreneur knows from studying the market into a language that the technician is going to say, yes, I understand. Not only do I understand, but that sounds interesting. I'd like to hang around for that. And of course, the way to do that is to be skilled at the people component of the manager's role, which is what we looked at in the leadership development. So you might remember that what we did then was conduct a scientific experiment in strict controlled conditions. And the way we did this is we asked half the people to leave the room and half the people stayed in the room. And the half the people who were in the room, we told them that you are the managers, the people who are outside the room were the team members, and you had to get the people outside the room to do a particular task, to draw an arm, to draw a leg, to draw a head, to draw a body part. The people who were outside the room, you were asked to go in, do the best that you could when your manager asked you to do something, and at the end of the activity, we were going to ask you to describe your manager, whatever words came to mind based on the interaction. You came in and of course the manager was quite rude, autocratic, direct, dictatorial. They pointed, they stayed standing when you were sitting. They just told you what it is that they wanted you to do. Draw me an arm, I don't want the pain, I just want the baby, just draw me an arm, all this sort of thing. And as a result, we ended up with a dog's breakfast that looks like Picasso meets Salvador Dali on drugs sort of thing. Then what we did is we swapped the teams over, and you might remember that the team members became the managers and the managers became the team members. The team members again left the room, but this time what we did is we provided the managers with the bigger picture. I was your customer, you might remember, and I was in the market for a new body, and your organisation's aim was to produce a new body, and each department or division had to draw a different component of the body, and when all of the components were brought together and sticky taped together, it looked as much as possible as though the body had been drawn by the one hand. So we gave you the big picture and we asked you to do exactly the opposite to what the first manager did. So we asked you to welcome them with a warm smile and shake of the hand, to sit down with them, to provide them with the big picture, to provide them with the resources to do the job, not to do the job for them, but just to ask them to do the job. The team members came in and of course as a result of the interaction we got a very different result second time around. The second picture that we drew was of course far superior to the first picture because we did a couple of things. So this activity identified a couple of things. First of all, it identified speed, quality, cost. Pick any two. What this activity tells us is that we need to be able to have a focus. We need to identify what the priority is for any given task. If we try to be all things to all people, we're not going to be anything to anyone. The companies, you might remember we discussed that the organisations that thrive and survive are those that have found their niche and they have stuck to it and they communicate that niche very clearly to their marketplace. And we identified that this same decision needs to be made for us on a macro level and also on a micro level. So your organisation would have made a decision as to what is the priority order for the next 12 months. And we as managers need to make sure that that gets translated into what it is that we do and what it is that we ask our team members to do. And if we can do that, then what we provide the organisation, the arm or the leg that we draw, is more likely to make sense. It's more likely to fit the bigger picture. Also, we need to make this decision on a micro level as well. Every task that lands on our desk, every task that we pass on to our team members, we need to have a little conversation with the other person concerned. And we need to identify what is the priority. If we can do that, what they provide us and what we in turn provide back to the organisation is just going to fit better. The other thing that this task shows us is that in order to improve performance, we need to do 4 things as leaders. First of all, we need to set direction. We need to provide our team members with a clear understanding as to what the end result needs to be. The more our team members understand about why it is we need to do something, what we need to do, how we might go about it, and dealing with the various concerns that they might have, the more likely they are to be able to produce what it is we're asking them to produce. Then, once they get started, we need to be able to analyse performance. We need to objectively analyse performance. We need to be able to stand back and from a macro level rather, not a micro level, from a macro level, we need to be able to watch what's going on. Are we headed in the right direction? How are individuals performing? Are we meeting milestones? These sorts of things. Then, dependent upon that analysis, we might need to intervene. So we may need to improve performance in some way, shape or form. We might see that one leg is going to be bigger than the other, or that the arm is not going to quite meet up the torso, and we need to intervene, draw this to the individual's attention and see if we can improve performance. Then after we've done that, you might remember we also need to review performance as well. So this is where we stuck the 2 flip charts up next to each other and we asked you to rate them on a scale of 0 to 10. And it was clear that the tasks, the activity that we had followed these 4 steps with was a vast improvement to the first one. And as we did this, had this conversation, it became evident that what we were starting to do was we were starting to set direction for the next task. And we saw that if we followed these 4 steps at a fairly global level, we would improve performance every time that we did this task. So at a very global level, these 4 steps are really the keys to leadership. And so what we did in the leadership program is we took each one of these steps, we pulled them apart, and we looked at what it is we could do in order to do these steps as well as we possibly could. Some tips, tools and techniques around setting direction, analysing performance, improving performance. That's what we looked at, and that formed the structure of our leadership program.